In the third year of marrying Pei Yue, he spent a fortune on a courtesan lady, saying he wanted to take her as a concubine. Song Fu, you should learn from the young ladies too. Don't sit in the inner quarters all day, living like an old maid. This time, I didn't cry or make a fuss. I obediently drank the concubine tea from the courtesan, then took the divorce papers and asked him to press his handprint. Pei Yue, remember this, I am the one who doesn't want you. He scoffed, declaring that I'd make a scene for 3 days at most before obediently returning to his side. But after 3 weeks passed, not only did I not turn back, I even won first prize playing polo with young Marquis Shi at the spring banquet. He finally panicked. I've already sent Sun Yang back. She was just a novelty to me. The next second, I fell into an embrace carrying the crisp scent of pine. Si Xingji smiled ambiguously and leisurely uttered a sentence. Your novelty may have worn off, but Song Fu is still fresh and new to me right now. In the third year of my marriage to Pei Yue, he began frequently visiting the pleasure quarters. Today was his birthday, and he even reserved the most expensive banquet hall at Yong'an Tower to entertain guests during the banquet. Someone teased, Brother Pei, you spent a fortune on Sun Yang today. If your wife finds out, she'll surely raise hell. Pei Yue sneered and squeezed the waist of the woman beside him, drawing a few coquettish protests. Let her make a scene if she wants. All these years I've never brought a woman home, I've already saved her face. His colleagues also chimed in and nodded, saying, That is right. Which high-ranking official or noble person in the capital only stays with one woman? After so many years, you've done more than enough. Ha ha ha. Then let me congratulate Brother Pei in advance on winning this beauty. Another round of toasting and laughter erupted. I stood outside the door holding a bowl of longevity noodles, feeling my hands and feet turn ice cold. Fulling couldn't help but urge me. Madam, let's go. The master is in high spirits right now. I am afraid. She hesitated to continue, but I knew what she wanted to say. Nothing more than fearing to spoil Pei Yue's mood. Everything before my eyes gradually blurred. In a place separated from Pei Yue by only a wall, I quietly finished this bowl of longevity noodles that originally belonged to him. These noodles tasted truly awful, bitter and astringent. I thought to myself, but Fulling cried, snatched the chopsticks from my hand, and hugged me. Don't eat any more, madam. Let's go home. Sitting in the carriage, I gazed from afar at the Yong'an Tower, brightly lit with singing and dancing in full swing. I knew that the young man who was willing to search through the entire capital for lanterns for me over a casual remark was gone. I couldn't sleep all night in my room, while Pei Yue fooled around at Yong'an Tower the entire night. When he returned, he reeked of alcohol and powder, with several rouge marks on his collar, quite scandalous. Pei Yue also brought back a shy and timid woman, presumably the courtesan he had redeemed last night by spending a fortune. Song Fu, I want to take Sun Yang as my concubine. She comes from a humble background and has a gentle nature. I pity her and want to give her a proper status. He is quite direct. My fingers unconsciously clenched tight, sharp nails piercing straight into my flesh. It hurt. Pei Yue noticed my movement, but only held the girl in his arms even tighter, as if afraid I would bully her. I couldn't help but smile bitterly. When he likes someone, he has always been biased, just like when he used to like me. Fine. I heard my own hoarse voice. Pei Yue, she can enter the household. This, you should sign it. I took out the divorce papers I had prepared long ago and placed them in front of him. Pei Yue was first surprised, then furious. He grabbed the thin sheet of paper before him and tore it to shreds. Song Fu, what exactly are you trying to do? Even if Sun Yang enters the household, your position as the legitimate wife won't be shaken in the slightest. Are you really this jealous? Unable to tolerate anyone? Am I jealous? It is simply that if you are heartless, then I'll leave. After a moment, I took out another fresh copy of the document from the side and pushed it in front of him. Go ahead and tear it. There is more where that came from. Pei Yue, signing it is good for both of us and preserves some dignity. He laughed in anger. Song Fu, why do you think I am taking a concubine, don't you know? You sit in the inner quarters all day, living like an old maid. without a shred of vitality. And instead, you are suspicious of me at every turn. That is right. Ever since I married him, there have been so many matters in the Earl's manor. I've been tied up with all those trivial affairs, rarely as lively as I was when I was still unmarried. But I used to be one of the finest young ladies in this capital city. His eyes were cold as ice, looking down at me from above. Song Fu, you better think this through. Once you walk out that door today, you'll no longer be a woman of the Pei family. I didn't answer him, taking the divorce papers with my fingerprint on them. I left with Fulling without looking back. Before turning the corner, I could still hear his cold, mocking words. Let her go, let's see how long she can keep this up. In less than 3 days, she'll definitely come crawling back to beg me. I didn't pause, only quickened my pace, walking out of this residence where I'd lived for 3 years. Pei Yue thought that I couldn't survive without him, but the world is vast and wide, where can't I? Song Fu go. It is not that she can't live without anyone. It is just that she was willing to compromise for love before. When love disappears, she can still find herself and go anywhere she wants. This attitude of, if you don't cherish me, there is a vast world out there for me, is more powerful than any revenge. I returned to the old Song residence, although no one had lived there for several years. All kinds of facilities inside were still completed, just needed some tidying up to be livable. During this time, Princess Jining came to see me. She held my hand and sighed with emotion. Watching you being worn down over these years in the Pei family, all your edges smoothed away, it truly breaks my heart. Now that you are divorced, don't let anyone bully you. I nodded with a smile, but my heart was full of bitterness. I am the only orphan daughter left in the General's manor, without parents' love since childhood, raised by my grandmother. Noble ladies were friendly to me on the surface, but privately they disliked me for lacking proper upbringing and not knowing music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Because of this, I had few close friends among the noble ladies in the capital, but Princess Jining was one of them. Back then, at a banquet, she and I competed in archery and horseback riding. I won, but not only was she not angry, she actually became close to me because of it. She knew about my family situation, and before I got married she had tried to advise me. For the Pei family is not as simple as yours. If you marry into it, I am afraid you'll suffer. And me, how did I respond? I was naive back then, thinking that love alone was enough to sustain us, and I even comforted her instead. Jining, it is fine. I trust him. Just like that, I married into the family without hesitation. It is just that grandmother's health was already poor. After seeing me married and having one worry off her mind, she fell ill and never recovered. At that time, Pei Yue knelt on the ground, holding grandmother's withered hand, swearing to her over and over again. Grandmother, I will definitely treat Fur well for the rest of my life and will never let her down. I never doubted his sincerity at that time. Unfortunately, sincerity changes in an instant. Looking back now, it all feels like something from a past life. Suddenly, Jining leaned over, her tone somewhat teasing. Hey, by the way, Shi Xingji has returned to the capital, did you know? My hand holding the teacup trembled, spreading a wet stain across my dress. Is that so? The name Shi Xingji had long been buried along with my departed girlhood. Now that someone had dug it up, I felt as if something inside me had been suddenly pierced, sour, with a hint of bitterness and sweetness. Shi Xingji, why did you have to come back at this very moment? Shi Xingji, if you've got the guts, compete with me at 15. I sat on horseback, chin slightly raised, dressed in red, as fierce as fire, looking at the person across from me. He curved his lips slightly, tilting his head lazily. Sure, the young man's appearance was strikingly beautiful, completely outshining, even the spring flowers blooming perfectly beside him, but I had no time to pay attention, only nervous about the outcome of the horse race. The prize this time was a fine purple hairbrush, and I had promised Pei Yue that if I won, I would give it to him. Shi Xingji smiled, but the darkness in his eyes gradually deepened as he said, You really like that brush? What answered him was the sound of spurring the horse and cracking the whip. I galloped away, and in the whooshing wind and the sound of hoofbeats, I seemed to hear him murmur softly, with a sadness not easily noticed by others. Song Fu, you've won. In the end, I narrowly beat him in that race. I got the purple hairbrush and went joyfully to find Pei Yue, but ignored Shi Xingji standing under the crabapple tree with a dejected expression. Later, I married into the PA household. As Pei Yue's official position grew higher and higher, this purple-tipped brush was no longer considered anything rare, so it was put away in a box and hadn't been used for a long time. As for Shi Xingji, in the year I got married, he requested to follow father to guard the frontier and didn't return for 3 years. After a long time, I finally realized that back then, Shi Xingji might have liked me. It is just that, at the time, my heart was entirely set on Pei Yue. So naturally, I overlooked the young man's hidden affection, now with his military achievements and success at a young age. I am sure when he returns to the capital this time, he'll definitely find a good match and certainly won't end up in the same situation as me. 3 years adrift, trusting the wrong person, nothing but a big dream. I was so lost in thought that I didn't even notice an invitation had appeared in my hand. Then it is settled. The spring banquet I am hosting, on the 9th day of the 3rd month you must come. Before I could call out to Jining, I only saw the corner of her blue dress disappear around the corner. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but my heart was clear as a mirror. She wanted me to attend more banquets, so I wouldn't be depressed and worry too much. That is fine too. Just then the spring scenery outside the window was brilliant, and a branch of crabapple blossoms trembled as it reached in, scattering a few petals just like back then. Miss outside the door, Fulling ran in out of breath, her tone urgent. What is the matter that you are in such a panic? I lifted my eyes, and upon seeing who had come, the words I hadn't finished got stuck in my throat, unable to come out even a bit. Perhaps I was in a daze. The face from my memories just now overlapped with the person before me, a young man full of vigor, his features proud and unruly. 3 years of military life on the battlefield had darkened and thinned him, but those black eyes were still startlingly bright, deeply reflecting my image. The spring breeze entangled, crabapple blossoms fell. Song Fu, he spoke softly, calling my name. Long time no see. Shi Xingji's appearance was completely beyond my expectations. Hadn't news just come that he was entering the capital? I don't know why, but even though it was just a thought in my mind, I unconsciously asked it out loud. The young man before me was stunned for a moment, then said with a smile, "Because you've been wronged. Song Fu, you can't possibly not know that I came here specifically for you, right?" His gaze was fervent, looking straight at me, not seeming fake in the slightest. My heart suddenly skipped a beat. At this moment, when the Song family's doorstep was deserted, when Pei Yue and I had divorced, when my reputation was at its absolute worst, there was such a person, he said he came here specifically for me. Inexplicably, my eyes felt a bit sore. "Xingji, I am not as good as you imagine," I mumbled back to him. "I am now a cast-off wife from the PI household. You coming to find me will harm your reputation." I lowered my head, no longer daring to look at him directly. Suddenly, an extremely contemptuous snicker came from beside my ear. "Face is something you earn yourself, since Pei Yue himself broke his word, acted like a petty person, and even went drinking and visiting prostitutes. He should be the one worried about reputation. What harm is there in you talking with me for a bit? Song Fu, you need to live for yourself." These words could be called heretical. I opened my mouth, but couldn't utter a word for a long while. After 3 years as a wife of the Pei family, everyone told me to be respectful and virtuous. But today, Shi Xingji told me to live for myself. Under his burning gaze, it seemed all filth had nowhere to hide and could no longer be concealed. I finally couldn't hold back anymore and burst into tears, crying over 3 years of grievances, Pei Yue's growing coldness and the bitterness of having no home to return to. Shi Xingji reached out his hand, as if wanting to pull me into his embrace, but in the end he lowered his hand and gently stroked my head. He let out a sigh. "Silly girl, cry all you want. Once you are done crying, we'll look forward." After my emotions gradually calmed down, I belatedly felt somewhat embarrassed. Not having seen each other for years, and upon meeting I just grabbed onto him and cried, "What kind of behavior was that?" I wrung my handkerchief tightly, utterly ashamed. Young Marquis Shi, just now I was improper. But Shi Xingji didn't look offended at all. He simply folded his arms across his chest, his eyes sparkling with amusement. "But I think calling you young Marquis Xia seems a bit too distant. Why don't you just call me Shi Xingji like before? How about that?" I took a step back and shook my head repeatedly. "That was all from when we were young. Now that you've achieved merit, I am sure you'll be granted titles and honors after your imperial audience. How could I be so presumptuous?" The more I spoke, the worse Shi Xingji's expression became. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, he stuffed something into my mouth, cutting off my words. Sweet and sour, it was a flavor I loved. "Even fruit from the western regions can't shut you up." With that, my vision blurred as he conjured up quite a few curious trinkets, like magic placed on the table. They could even be described as a dazzling array. Meeting my gaze, he turned his head away uncomfortably, though his reddened ear tips betrayed his feelings. I was stationed at the border and found these things particularly interesting, so I brought them back on a whim. When you've eaten someone's food and taken their gifts, you owe them. Song Fu, you absolutely cannot skip Jining's spring banquet. After saying that, without waiting for my response, he fled in a hurry, leaving me alone standing there in a daze. He just left. Thinking about his behavior just now, I couldn't help but let out a laugh. And it seemed the gloom in my heart these past days had also lifted quite a bit. I don't know when Fulling had come to stand outside the window, her eyes eager, looking even happier than I was. "Miss, in this servant's opinion, young Marquis Xie is so much better than that one from the Pi family. These things are quite rare in the capital. What is most precious is that he has been thinking of you all these years. Just looking at these things, you can tell this definitely wasn't done casually." I lowered my eyes without speaking. There were many things on the table, but everywhere my gaze fell, they were all things I liked. Things I liked, yet didn't dare to touch. After marrying Pei Yue, he no longer allowed me to practice martial arts. He said I was the matriarch of a prestigious family. How could I be so improper? As a newlywed wife, I thought of my husband's family and everything, so I erased all my hobbies. Looking back now, I really shouldn't have done that. I picked up a sleeve arrow and fastened it on my wrist. Amidst Fulling's startled cry, the sleeve arrow shot through the air and hit the hanging painting on the wall right in the center. The woman in the painting had charming eyes and brows, walking beside a man, like a celestial couple. This depicted Pei Yue and me. I used to treasure it dearly, wishing I could hang it at home to admire every day. But now, the person in the painting is no longer the person before my eyes, better to destroy it. Gather up all these old things, burn what should be burned, throw away what should be thrown away. Miss Fulling hesitated to speak at my side. I knew what she was thinking. 3 years of feelings. How could they just disappear like that? But disappointment accumulates from the very beginning. This time was just a trigger. That is all. Weren't we going to play polo? I winked at her, my tone relaxed. It has been so long since I've attended such a banquet. I wonder if my skills have gotten rusty. Why don't you hurry up and get ready to go with me to the polo field for some practice? This was the first time in all these years that I had taken the initiative to mention these things. She was stunned for a moment, then overjoyed. "Ah, okay, I'll go right away." I looked out the window. The spring scenery was beautiful, the sunlight bright and clear. I thought perhaps it was time for me to look forward. The third day after Sangren left, Pei Yue felt inexplicably irritable. He threw down the documents in his hand and swept the teacup beside him to the ground, shattering it to pieces. He had once declared that Songfu wouldn't last 3 days before obediently returning to his side. But until now, forget about coming back. Not even a single letter had arrived. Footsteps approached. Sun Yang, carrying a bowl of fish soup, gracefully entered the study. She served him gently and attentively, but Pei Yue stared at her profile, lost in thought. He remembered the first time he stayed out overnight. Back then, a colleague had invited him, and unable to refuse, he had muddled through the night. When he returned the next day, Songfu said nothing, only made him a bowl of chestnut, and rice porridge. That day, the porridge tasted a bit salty. He had held her in his arms with heartache, comforting her softly, wiping away her tears. This time, I really had no choice, Fure. I promise it won't happen again next time. But once a person climbs to a high position, temptations of power, money, and sex come flooding in one after another. How could they possibly be pushed away? Compared to his friends who had 3 wives and 4 concubines in their households, or even those who favored concubines over wives, Pei Yue considered himself quite devoted. Song Fu had cried and made scenes before, after all. He had promised her in their youth that they'd be one couple for one lifetime. But every time he coaxed her nicely a few times, she'd come back. Besides, Song Fu was now all alone. Without him, a weak woman like her, carrying the reputation of being a discarded wife of the Pei family, would absolutely not be able to survive in the capital. This time, he'd just consider it a lesson for her. With this thought, Pei Yue's tense body relaxed a bit. He picked up the fish soup from the tray, took a sip, then reached out to pull Sunyang into his embrace, letting her nestle against him. "Don't leave. Stay in the main courtyard tonight." Pei Yue at that moment had no idea what a precious thing he'd lost. So much so that for every night in the latter half of his life he tossed and turned over it, wishing he were dead. The 9th day of the 3rd month, bright sunshine, it was good weather. I got myself ready early and brought Fu Ling to the banquet. Jianing came to greet me personally, linking her arm with mine as we entered. "Fu, I've been waiting for you. Come, hurry inside." The noble ladies and clan wives present all had different expressions when they saw me. The news that Pei Yue and I had divorced spread like wildfire throughout the streets and alleys of the capital. Now everyone was waiting to watch my misfortune unfold. What is more, some directly mocked me with their words. "Oh my, isn't this Madam Pei? Oh, look at my memory now, I should call you Miss Song." The speaker was second Miss Liu. Back when my marriage to Pei Yue wasn't yet settled, their 2 families' parents had arranged a meeting. It is just that at the time, Pei Yue was a concubine-born son of the Earl's manor, and this young lady didn't think much of him. Only after he was promoted repeatedly following his marriage did she regret it, telling everyone that I had stolen her marriage prospect. Now seeing that I was divorced, she was even more unbearably smug. Second Miss Liu is right. Now both you and I are still unmarried, which makes us quite unique in this capital city, I replied lightly, but it left her speechless. After rejecting Pei Yue, the Liu family had found several other households for her, but she looked down on all of them, dragging it on and on. Even until now, her marriage remained unsettled. It was nothing more than the pot calling the kettle black. Hatsk, which family's abandoned wife, is so arrogant. No wonder Lord Pei wanted to divorce her. People around whispered among themselves, their gazes lingering on me repeatedly. I shook my head and continued walking forward, leaving all those unpleasant comments behind me. But I noticed that at some point, those idle gossips behind me had suddenly fallen silent. I seemed to sense something and turned to look back, only to see a person I didn't want to see. Pei Yue didn't come alone. The woman timidly clinging to his side was none other than Xunyang, the one he had redeemed. With the beauty in his arms, Pei Yue's expression was nevertheless unpleasant. I only glanced at him once before looking away. I suppose the matter of our divorce also made him feel he'd lost face. But now none of this has anything to do with me anymore. The Pei family's reputation, the social circles of noble families, all these things, I no longer need to worry about any of them. As Shixingja said, I now live only for myself. Song Fu, what are you doing? Come quickly. The polo match is about to start. Jianing waved her handkerchief, beckoning to me. I responded and lifted my skirt, running over without looking back, naturally also ignoring Pei Yue's gloomy expression behind me, and his clenched fists. Pei Yue had just taken his seat when he'd already downed several cups of cold wine. As if holding a grudge against someone, he said nothing, only staring fixedly at the figure on the polo field before him. Sunyang tried to speak to him several times during this period, but was frightened into silence by the oppressive air around him. She could only follow his gaze, and inadvertently saw the woman who should have been her mistress, the daughter of the Song family, Song Fu. She was now dressed in red, blazing like fire, coordinating quite smoothly with young Marquis Xia beside her, making people unable to help but clap and cheer for her. Even men who often play polo wouldn't necessarily have such accuracy. Seeing another goal scored, although Sun Yang didn't know how to play, she inexplicably became excited along with them and couldn't help but smile. The next second, a cold, mocking voice came from beside her ear. Is polo really that interesting to watch? It is just something too vulgar for refined company. Sun Yang immediately fell silent. After years of experience in the pleasure quarters, she could keenly perceive everyone's emotions and their hidden thoughts. The person her master truly loved was actually Songfu, but some people relying on that sense of security always end up losing the most precious thing they possess, a fervent, genuine heart. Pei Yue was the same. Sun Yang looked down on this type of man from the bottom of her heart when someone truly loved him. He didn't want it. Then after hurting them away, he put on this deep affection act. Who was it for? But who told Pei Yue to redeem her from the brothel? Toward one's patron, one still had to show some respect. She picked up a cup of wine and personally delivered it to Pei Yue. This humble one was merely curious, that is all. For displeasing master, I'll punish myself with a drink. Sun Yang smiled and downed the wine in one gulp. I mounted the horse and only then learned who my partner was. Shi Xingji, with his hair tied high in a ponytail, pulled on the reins and walked toward me. Jianing laughed happily, covering half her face with a fan, barely revealing her eyes, waving at me. Thank you, young Marquis. My Fuhrer is one of the top polo players in the capital, so don't drag her down. The young man smiled freely, not answering, just eagerly turned his horse around and stood side by side with me. I really like the gift you gave me. In the silence, I was the first to break the ice. As the words fell, I seemed to see the eyes of the person beside me brighten. It is impolite not to reciprocate. In that case, whatever I win today, I'll give it all to you as a gift. How is that? I thought of that match he lost to me years ago. How could the young Marquis Xi, who had always been invincible, lose to a mere woman? He was just going easy on me. A young man's affection has always been straightforward. His gaze grew more and more intense, as if he wanted to devour me. Are you serious about what you said? Of course I am serious. Before I could finish speaking, Shi Xingji had already burst into laughter and galloped away with a crack of his whip. Songfu, choose me, and I definitely won't let you lose. His voice wasn't quiet. Those around us heard it, and curious or puzzled gazes shifted between us. My cheeks inexplicably flushed hot, and I quickly spurred my horse to follow behind him. What did he mean by choose him, and he definitely won't let me lose? That was way too arrogant. But after officially starting the match, I discovered that Shi Xingji indeed had the capital to be arrogant. When our flag was raised once again, the crowd immediately erupted. This was already our 6th consecutive goal. Without any suspense, we won all the prizes of this competition. The things were all sorts of odds and ends, mostly rare curiosities from Princess Jining's mansion. I glanced at them and pushed them all in front of him. These are all yours now. Shi Xingji stared at me for a long while, then picked out a crabapple flower hairpin from the pile and laughed in exasperation. Can I even use this thing? If you can't use it, then give it to the women in your household. Just by looking at the quality, you can tell Jining really went all out this time. I took a sip of tea, not caring much about it. For a man of his age, he should have come of age already. Having 1 or 2 concubines serving in his household would be perfectly normal. Even Pei Yue, before marrying me, had people in his chambers. But later, when he married me, he simply sent them away. If he didn't have any, that would be abnormal. That is what I thought. Songfu. He suddenly spoke up, interrupting my train of thought. I casually hummed in response. But when I looked up, I saw the seriousness in his eyes. There are no women, no one else. His lips were pressed tight, his ear tips slightly red. From beginning to end, there is only you, Songfu. Pei Yue ultimately couldn't suppress the irritation in his heart. He stared fixedly at that flash of red figure under the corridor across from him. What exactly did that Xia family boy say to her? Why is she smiling so happily? Pei Yue frowned tightly, only now realizing with a start that it seemed like a very long time since he had seen Songfu wearing such brightly colored clothing and smiling so happily. Before, when she was Lady Pei, she would just sit quietly at banquets, and even when there were activities, she wouldn't participate, only exchanging pleasantries with other clan wives. This made him forget that she was originally also a woman who could make everyone turn their heads to look. No, wait, before, she used to smile like that only at him. In countless moments, when he said he would marry her and Songfu was moved to tears when they had their wedding and he nervously lifted her embroidered veil, when she held him and said she never cared that he was a concubine-born son, suddenly his heart felt like it was being scorched in boiling oil. He involuntarily clutched at his collar. At this moment, he suddenly saw the figures of Song Fu and Xie Xingji leaving together. Perhaps it was the alcohol, perhaps it was what his heart desired. Pei Yue stood up, pushed away Sun Yang, who wanted to support him, and walked toward them unsteadily. "Don't follow me." Regret grew in Pei Yue's heart, like ants and locusts gnawing at it. He was wrong, he thought. Although he was born into an earl's household back then, his status as a concubine-born son had also caused him much suffering. It was Song Fu who had always chosen him unwavering, managed the inner household for him, that he could achieve such success. He would go apologize properly to Song Fu right now. She had always been the most soft-hearted. Besides, Song Fu had liked him for so long. How could she let go so easily? She would definitely forgive him, definitely. Pei Yue stumbled along behind the two figures ahead, watching them stop in their tracks, and he too came to a halt. Inexplicably, he didn't want to disturb them with his voice. A thought popped up from the bottom of his heart, as if possessed by a ghost. He was also a man. He understood Xingji's feelings for Songfu, but Songfu was divorced, and as far as he knew, Xie Xingji had just returned victorious. The Marquis Manor was at its peak, and they certainly couldn't tolerate a cast-off wife entering their doors. Moreover, a cast-off wife with a reputation for jealousy. He suddenly wasn't in a hurry anymore. He thought, once Songfu hit a wall at the Xie family and suffered hardship, she would naturally come to appreciate his worth. When that time came, he would just send Sun Yang away, not keeping her at home to be an eyesore. Xie Xingji, I've been married before. At this moment, a clear voice rang out, unlike usual, carrying a hint of grievance. It was Songfu speaking, immediately followed by an urgent male voice. Songfu, I know you've been married, but in my heart you are still the best Miss Song. Songfu, I've already informed my father to welcome you through our doors. Marrying you is something I decided on when I was 16. The rest assured, the Xie family's ancestral rule is to never abandon one's first wife. In my quarters, forget about concubines, I haven't even had female servants. I, Xie Xingji, swear here that if I ever betray Songfu in this life, let me be hacked to death by enemy blades, pierced by 10,000 arrows MMPH. He didn't continue his words, as Songfu covered his mouth. On the battlefield, swords and blades have no eyes. Is this the kind of thing you can casually swear about? The young man laughed softly and held her hand. In that case, have you agreed to my proposal? For a very, very long time, Songfu didn't answer, but Pei Yue knew she had already wavered. His heart, which had just calmed down, was now growing more and more panicked, more and more chaotic. He hadn't expected that Xie Xingji was serious. His chaotic thoughts mixed with the effects of alcohol. Pei Yue's body swayed, and he stepped on a dead branch on the ground, making a faint sound. Who is there? Almost instinctively, Xie Xingji hid Songfu behind him. Oh, I was wondering who it was. So it is Lord Pei. Xie Xingji raised his eyebrows and calmly protected Songfu as he stepped back 2 paces. Does Lord Pei have a habit of eavesdropping on other people's conversations? Scaring people for no reason isn't good. Xie Xingji was tall and slender, even half a head taller than Pei Yue. He shielded Songfu completely, so he could only see a glimpse of her red dress hem. Pei Yue recalled Songfu's behavior just now and spoke while suppressing his anger. Songfu, have you made enough of a scene? If you have, come back. I am only interested in Sun Yang because of the novelty. I'll send her away. Come back, the position of the Pei family's legitimate wife will always be reserved for you. Song Fu didn't answer, but a scornful laugh escaped from Xu Xingji's mouth. He wrapped his arm around Song Fu protectively, still shielding her tightly, and Song Fu didn't struggle in the slightest. Your novelty may have worn off, but Song Fu is fresh, and new to me right now. At that moment, Pei Yue clearly heard the sound of his own heart breaking. He stared fixedly at Song Fu's figure, desperately trying to find a trace of unwillingness. But there was none. She had truly given up on him. Pei Yue's whole body trembled. He didn't believe it that the girl who had always followed by his side would now love another. Fuer. What right do you have to call her Fuer? His trembling, trailing voice was mercilessly cut off by Xu Xingji. She married into your Pei family for 3 years. Have you ever truly cared about her even once? You say social obligations can't be avoided, but every time someone pushed a woman into your arms, didn't you always go along with it half-heartedly? Such a bright and radiant woman, ground down into this state by your PI family. Do you know that what you cast aside like trash is what I've yearned for all these years, but couldn't have? Xi Xingji stared at him intently, saying word by word, I am the legitimate eldest son of the Marquise's household, and I've accompanied my father on campaigns. The temptations I've faced are no less than yours. Pei Yue, you need to admit it. It is not that you couldn't, it is that you didn't want to. The color drained completely from Pei Yue's face with those words. He stared blankly at Song Fu, he knew. She would never forgive him for the rest of her life. At this moment he finally understood that the grievances he had ignored and the sincere heart he had trampled on couldn't be smoothed over with just an, I was wrong. Song Fu's refusal to forgive wasn't cruelty, it was self-protection after being hurt to the core. 3 years of torment and countless disappointments had long exhausted all her expectations. Pei Yue fled as if escaping, leaving only Xu Xingji and me standing there. He pulled me out of his embrace with an annoyed look and wiped away my tears. All right, stop crying. Your face is all smeared from crying. I don't know why, but my tears just kept falling uncontrollably. Ever since grandmother passed away, and I was left alone in the general's manor, no one in this world had protected me like he just did. Today, Xu Xingji's words completely tore off Pei Yue's mask. It wasn't that he couldn't, it was that he didn't want to. Actually, I should have known long ago were all those times he overstepped boundaries really unavoidable. They never were, and never could be. He was just going with the flow back then. I liked him because of his aloof and ethereal temperament, and a scholar's unyielding integrity. But I never imagined that, after marrying into the PA family, I would have to learn all those tedious formalities I hated most, and manage household accounts. Pei Yue didn't sympathize with me either. Instead, he broke his promise. His so-called one lifetime, one person, one pair was just sweet talk spoken on a whim. It couldn't be taken seriously. Even if I forgive him today, he drove away Sunyang, but there will still be Jiaonyang, Yuanyang, Yunyang. Never try to win back a man. That is the stupidest thing to do. I took a deep breath and calmed my emotions. Xi Xingji, I am fine now. Let go of me quickly. I won't. His low voice sounded, filled with deep grievance. Song Fu, what I just said wasn't entirely to provoke him. What I said is all true. If you marry me, I will definitely treat you well. After saying that, he seemed eager to prove it, and immediately took off the jade pendant from his body and handed it to me. Take this. It is my mother's keepsake. As long as you and I exchange our horoscopes, my betrothal gifts will be carried into the Song residence immediately. The Xia family has simple relationships. Once you come in, you'll be the only mistress. The houses, fields, and shops will all be yours. I lowered my head, looking at my own toes. Xingji, give me some time to think about it, okay? I really don't have the energy to enter another relationship right away. Moreover, this person is Xi Xingji, who has liked me for so many years. I am scared. I am afraid I won't dare to love someone so passionately again. That wouldn't be fair to him. Across from me, the light in Xi Xingji's eyes gradually settled, but he took a step back and tried hard to maintain a smile. Okay, I'll wait for you to think it through. He left, but I was exhausted all over, almost about to sit down on the ground. I am sorry, Xi Xingji. What, you rejected Shishingji? Jianing sat across from me, and after hearing me explain the whole story, she almost choked on her tea. I hurriedly stood up to help her calm down, feeling rather guilty. I didn't refuse either. I just said I wanted to think about it. Jianing grabbed my hand, quite frustrated with me. That Shishingji is really unreliable, and I helped him so much. She sighed and continued. Since it has come to this, I'll tell you everything. The polo match was organized at Shishingji's request. He returned to the capital this time because he heard the news of your divorce. Back when you married Pei Yue, he secluded himself in his residence for 3 days. Before volunteering to go to the frontier, he gave this to me, saying it was a wedding gift for you. Me mind went blank for a moment. Wasn't this the hairpin that was used as the prize? Recalling how he suddenly became serious when I was joking around at that time. In an instant, I understood everything. I heard he carved this knife stroke, by knife stroke. Hey, Song Fu, where are you going? I grabbed the hairpin and ran out the door without looking back. To find Shishingji. I sat in the carriage holding the crabapple hairpin in my hand, taking deep breaths continuously. Shishingji, I've made up my mind, wait for me. Miss, we've arrived at the Marquise's residence. The coachman's voice rang out. I looked up and jumped down from the carriage in 2 steps, lifting my skirt. I stood at the main gate of the Shia residence, took a deep breath, and had Fu-Ling-Go knock on the door. The one who opened the door was a young gatekeeper who asked, Miss Song, are you looking for the young Marquise? Well, you've come at a bad time just now. Someone from the palace came, saying there is an urgent matter to discuss with him. I heard it is about border affairs. He probably won't be back any time soon, so you should come back another day. My mind went blank for a moment. The border. Right. He originally rushed back to the capital for me, and he'll probably have to go back soon. Once the imperial edict is issued, the army will mobilize, and there can be no delay. If he returns to the border, how am I supposed to tell him what is in my heart? My thoughts were tangled like a mess, and my expression looked terrible. Fu-Ling looked worried and hurried over to support me. Miss, why don't we go back first and come again another day? I just stood there in a daze, and no matter how she pulled at me, I wouldn't move until I heard a familiar voice from behind. What? Gone dumb? I whipped around to see Shinja's face wearing a smile. Liar, I rushed up to him in 2 or 3 steps and stuffed the hairpin into his hand. Why didn't you tell me that you carved this yourself? Otherwise I wouldn't have treated it as just a lucky charm, wouldn't have joked about it so casually. Song Fu, anything I give you only has value if you like it. I like it, Shishingji, are you about to leave? I looked at him nervously, hoping for his answer. A light laugh came from above my head. His broad palm covered the top of my head as he said, I won't leave, His Majesty just wants to catch up with me, that is all. So I've made up my mind. This time, it was my turn to interrupt him. I've made up my mind, Shishingji. I am willing. The day of my wedding with Shishingji was very lively. Even more lively than when I married Pei Yue, 100 times over. 10 miles of red dowry, phoenix crown and bridal veil, all of these. He gave to me, even when he rode his horse to fetch the bride. I still felt it was unreal. Song Fu, I finally married you. When Shishingji held my hand to help me onto the carriage, he said softly. I squeezed his hand tightly in response. The maids scattered wedding candies and copper coins, and the children around swarmed to snatch them up, laughter filling the air. In such a joyful atmosphere, naturally no one would notice that in the tavern across the street, there was a man dead drunk, staring foolishly at the newlyweds. This person was none other than Pei Yue. After that day's spring banquet, Pei Yue became dispirited and dejected, even getting angry whenever he saw Sunyang, saying she had ruined his family. Later, he actually returned Sunyang's indenture contract and household registration to her, telling her to make her own living, but he never expected that Sunyang was someone who loved money. Without Song Fu's management, the entire Earl's mansion was thrown into complete chaos. Under such circumstances, Sunyang rolled up quite a bit of silver and valuables and vanished without a trace. Only then did he realize how ridiculously wrong he had been. For the sake of those flirtatious women, He had thrown away his most precious thing. But now his regret was merely useless. Lift the sedan chair following the wedding matron's call. The sedan chair steadily set off. In a daze, Pei Yue saw the scene of his own wedding day with Song Fu. Only this time, for the rest of his life, Song Fu's joys and sorrows would have nothing to do with him anymore. The wedding procession set out in grand fashion, swallows chirping, spring harmonious, and the scenery bright. A child was bouncing and singing on the side. Spring day feast, a cup of green wine and a song once through. Bow again and make 3 wishes. First wish the Lord live 1,000 years. Second wish this body stay ever healthy. Third wish to be like the swallows on the beam, meeting year after year.